Hello and welcome to Enlightened Empaths, your community for the spiritually awakened, where we discuss, explore, and connect with fellow empaths, healers, intuitives, and seekers.
Welcome back, empaths. We're going to try something a little different today. With me opening up the show, which is always weird because we don't usually do that. But we did a show on this a while back on ancestral healing, but I think that it's a really important one to revisit right now, with this being a 9-year, with so many people releasing things in their life that don't fit, with doing that deep dive to face old trauma, old grief. And, so many of us ask that question, is it me? Did I come to break these cycles and release the generational trauma? And if you've ever looked at your family of origin and wondered why you would have chosen those dynamics and lessons, it could be a hint that maybe you did come in to do the heavy lifting for your family.
It does seem like there's a lot of cycle breakers waking up right now, doesn't it?
It really does. And people who are really, they can't not be themselves anymore. I know that's not as clear as it should be, but they're tired. They're tired of not expressing their truth. They're tired of hiding their intuition. Instead of making excuses for feeling different, they're finding communities where they're accepted for who they are.
Yes. And creating their own new family.
Right. Because how many folks have we talked to over the years, and we hear their stories and the challenges that they've faced, or the abuse and the neglect, or maybe there was love, but they never felt like they really belonged, being the different one that didn't fit in. And I think for those of us that are intensely sensitive or intuitive or creative, it leaves you feeling unsure of how best to relate to yourself, but also how to separate from that family of origin, but still honor that there's a loving bond.
Yes. Yeah, that's a really difficult one. And we're going to try to touch on how you can bridge those two things together. And not only, you hear all the time, the answer is to forgive, to let it go, or it wasn't really that bad. But that negates all of the deep emotions and experiences that you felt at that time and may still feel. And it doesn't validate that a piece of your safety and security may have been compromised. I'm a big advocate of not jumping to forgiveness. And I know that sounds counterintuitive to a spiritual way of living, but I don't think we should jump to forgiveness. I think we have to honor for ourselves what happened and how we feel if we were the different one in the family or the overlooked one or what have you. I don't think forgiveness and just letting it go is the answer. That almost reeks of the other show we did years ago on toxic positivity.
Right. And I think many people just need that person who might have caused the pain or the sense of betrayal. And if that person isn't unwilling to acknowledge their actions, or they might not even be here on the planet anymore to have that part of the conversation, then we're left holding that. And if someone's constantly telling you to forgive, and from personal experience, I had someone who had passed, there was some unresolved things. I've said this over and over on this show, you can continue to do the healing and the work with people in spirit. And that's the whole point of this ancestral healing that we're talking about, is it doesn't end just because someone isn't available. If they're still here, you can do the work as well. But what we're trying to do is to really let go of the old anger, the old fear, the old anxiety, and the old thing, all the things that have made us feel less or not worthy.
Yeah, exactly. I think sitcoms in the 80s really did a number on me with that, because you always watch these shows, especially like Highway to Heaven. Thank you,
Yes.
Michael Landon. And you would have these like awful narcissistic or emotionally abusive parents. And in 30 minutes or less, they would go, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I did all that. And it would all be healed. And I remember really thinking as a kid that was possible. In my experience, people who knowingly hurt you or put you down or mitigate you or triangulate in the family, they don't ever admit it. And I think waiting for them to recognize it and validate it, I think that's a useless cause. But working with them on the astral level or the spiritual level, whether they're alive or have crossed over, that's a different thing. And that's what we hope to touch on today.
And I shared this with you that when I was doing this work last year, and I'm going to do it again coming up, that there was the person that I mentioned that there were some unresolved things. I did a meditation, and for the first time in my life, I understood their perspective, and it changed me. It
Mhm.
really changed me because I could only ever perceive and filter it through my end of things. And then I saw it from their perspective. And it really, really changed that healing that needed to happen.
That's so important. And what's cool is when you do those meditations, if the person is still alive, sometimes you can see the effect of that meditation in their future behavior to you,
Exactly.
which is really amazing when you can see the healing. But what's most important is you can feel the awareness and the aha moment inside of yourself after you did that meditation, right?
Exactly. And that's what we're really trying to do here is when we can do that healing for ourselves, it is going to cause a residual effect. It's going to cause an impact on the people who are still here, the people in spirit, and I believe future generations. Um, But I think a lot of folks fall into a comparative study of, well, it wasn't that bad for me, or her life was so much worse, or he went through so much more, or they experienced things. But if you catch yourself always doubting yourself, or you're hesitant to speak your truth because of fear of retaliation, or you might perseverate and overthink every decision you make, is there a hesitancy in speaking your truth that is from ingrained conditioning that taught you to take care of other people's needs at the expense of your own? And you might have had to. You might have needed to do those things to survive, but you've learned to read the room and to watch for the subtleties in someone's behavior or mannerisms to protect yourself emotionally. But that can also lead to not trusting anyone but yourself.
Yeah. And it can lead to lots of criticism, unrealistic expectations, fear of failure, comparing yourself to others. And that all just ends up in self doubt and insecurity, but are often the result of seeds planted by someone else. So maybe you've become so risk averse to the point of missing opportunities or feeling completely stonewalled with your creativity. These are all signs that you have some ancestral healing work to do.
Right. And so if you've looked at your own life and you can't seem to find where that seed was planted for some of your reactions or your traumas or unresolved physical or emotional levels, maybe it didn't start with you. And some potential indicators of ancestral trauma can be physical health issues. And we are not negating traditional medicine or the need to see a physician or to have things checked out. But some things, chronic pain, autoimmune disorders, other unexplainable medical conditions, fibromyalgia, things that they can't really pinpoint where it started or what the seed of it was. Are there some mental health issues, maybe anxiety or depression or PTSD? Do you have negative behavior and thought patterns, low self worth, the inability to trust people, unhealthy coping techniques? Do you ever feel disconnected or a sense of not belonging? Where your family, culture, or society can all be impacted. Difficulty with close relationships, attachment, trust, managing emotions, and self-regulation, that impulse control, or maybe you've had times in your life where there's been some self-destructive behaviors when you feel disassociated from thoughts and feelings and surroundings, or you get those intrusive thoughts or flashbacks. And I think if you're going to attempt to do this ancestral work, the first step is to really look at you, look at what happened in my life, and not to the point where it's holding you back or you're stuck in that focus, but finding where, if you can't find where it started in this lifetime, it could be something that was handed down. And as I've said in the past, we can't blame those prior generations because they did not have the societal or cultural supports in place, so they handed it down. I don't think they were doing it to be mean.
No, I don't think so either. The only one that pops into my head, my mom used to tell this story all the time. We were at the grocery store, and I was like 3 years old. I was very, very, very young. And it was the time when, like, you had to pay for your groceries with cash or a check. And my mom had left her wallet at home, and the woman had rung up all the groceries. And apparently burst into tears with embarrassment. And it was like my family and my dad always did really well. He worked incredibly hard. That there was no like issue with that. And she used to always wonder like, where did that come from? Where, like, how did I even know to be embarrassed by that? I wonder if that's like an ancestral thing that was passed on. Because gosh knows, I mean, my parents were second generation Americans, and so there's been struggle in the older generations of leaving a country and coming here and starting over. Are you talking about something like that with like weird triggers?
Yes, because when I was looking at this, like for my generation and for many people listening, their parents or their grandparents would have an association with the Depression. So both of my parents were born during the Depression in the United States. But then when I looked at the historical timeline from when they were born until their late teens, the Depression went right into World War II. So they never had any time in their lives where there was not huge, huge catastrophic things happening that were impacting society on a global level. That has to leave a mark.
It does, right?
Yeah.
Huh.
So I wonder if that's
Interesting.
tapping in with like your grandparents.
I know. And I'm just thinking, I remember my roommate in college spent all her student loan money like on herself in clothes in one semester, and it didn't freak her out at all. And I used to like be all worried for her. Well, you could do this, and the Department of Engineering is hiring. You could work there. And I was like, why are you not worried about this? And it didn't bother her at all. But that type of stuff has always bothered me. I always have to have, you know, all my money in savings. I have to have my emergency fund. I've always been like that. I think I came into the world like that.
Needing that security and stability.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is
So
weird because there was some emotional instability I didn't have growing up, but we always had economic stability growing up. So I wonder if that's a sign of an ancestral healing. And I wonder if my now aha moment can help other listeners think about weird things they have in their own lives. Like, where did that come from? Why am I so insistent on having this? Or I get worried about that when I have no history in my past to associate that with.
exactly, because I mean we're trying to recognize and find these patterns and emotions and actions that have passed down from generation to generation through our lineage. So I'm sure there are people who are listening and saying, well, I was adopted or I was raised by someone other than my biological family. You get the double whammy because when we've done mediumship with someone who has been adopted into foster or a different family unit have been their caregivers, it seems like we get both. We get the adoptive family and we get the biological family. So I think you came in for really big work. Personal opinion. But there's the areas that need healing usually have a strong emotional connection. And you just put that beautifully into words, Samantha, was saying you had such a strong reaction of embarrassment. You've always had this feeling of, will there be enough? Will I be safe? Will I be secure? Even though there's nothing in this lifetime that would really foster that.
Right, right. That's
And
really fascinating.
yeah. And, does a behavior or memory give you a fight or flight response? Do you ever feel shame or sadness or guilt when certain topics are brought up? Or do random events seem to trigger emotional reactions that don't seem like an appropriate response? Do you overreact? Do you feel it more deeply than it would seem like you should? The tendency is to look at the obvious events that happen throughout our family history, but what if we aren't sure, can't put our finger on why it's impacted us so deeply? And that's when you look at your own life, and if you have any self-defeating patterns, do you tend to put yourself down? Do you have codependency or control issues? Are you stuck in a poverty mindset that no matter how much money or security you generate, it's never enough? Addictive behaviors, feelings of worthlessness, fear of rejection, any recurring patterns that may have originated in a single event from your own life or a generational pattern or a past life influence. So it's hard to identify, well, where did this come from? All we know is we want to find that and pull that out so that we don't have to carry it through this life or into the next or hand it off to any future generations.
Yes, because we are the cycle breaker. You might even see this in patterns in your life now, dating the same person with a different face, making more than enough money, but still living paycheck to paycheck, or feeling stuck and trapped in relationships where you feel less and can't figure out how to leave, or remaining in a job that is sucking the life out of you because you don't see too any other options, and basically anything that isn't serving you to live the life you truly came here to experience. The commonality in all of these is generally pain and anger. But what has caused you to believe you don't deserve to be treated with love, respect, and dignity? You may remember the person in this lifetime who rejected or dismissed you, was hurtful or selfish, or used their authority to put you in your place, all leading you to doubt yourself, feeling like you don't matter, or questioning your own worth. Pain and anger can keep you stuck and hold you hostage, but you also have the right and the ability to step out of it and make the conscious choice to live differently. If you grew up surrounded by judgmental people, ridicule, humiliation, or any other influences that cause you to shut down, a first step can be asking yourself if any of this is really true. Do you remember that powerful meditation I had years ago? I've shared it a couple of times, so forgive me if I'm repeating this, but this was about, I don't know, 15 years ago. And I was on the phone with my mom, and she was doing her normal putting me down, putting me down, putting me down stuff. And I took it for like 10 minutes, and then I just kind of exploded on her and hung up. And I sat down in my little meditation chair, and I was like, okay, I'm really working my spiritual path. I'm working on forgiveness. I've read Louise Hay, I don't know how many times. Dear guide, clearly I'm not doing it right, so help me. And all I heard back was, you are Chinese.
Oh,
And I was like, no, I'm English, I'm Irish, I'm Romanian, I'm Italian, I'm not Chinese. I said, try again. And I heard, you are Chinese. And I was like, what the hell's going on? Have I lost my connection to spirit too now because of my anger? And then I heard, why do you believe all her falsehoods?
oh,
And that was really, really impactful because I knew I wasn't a Chinese person. I knew that. But if I was getting mad by some of the mean things she was saying to me, then a part of me must have believed them.
right.
That's the work that I had to do, was recognizing that those cruel things were not true.
And that's a really, really, really important point is, are you tired of owning it? But also, is it something that was gradual, that you were told it over and over for years on end, or in those developmental stages, or when you were really vulnerable? And this could be a relationship that you were in. We've talked to so many people that have gotten out of toxic emotional relationships with people, romantic relationships. And how many times have people said, I don't know what happened. I lost myself. I forgot who I was.
Oh, yeah.
So this kind of thing is, I think it can be gradual. I think it can be one person specifically, but it always seems to cause a pattern in how we relate to ourselves. The shamanic stuff that's my crystals, so I have to try to work it into everything because I'm sure there's a crystal for this. I am positive there's a crystal for this. In shamanic traditions, this would be considered soul loss, and it's that wounding or fragmentation of a person's soul as a result of trauma, abuse, war, conflicts, other intense reactive situations, often suffered at an early age, and has been seen as a leading cause of illness and immune system deficiencies, negatively impacting physical, emotional, and mental health. But a lot of the common symptoms of soul loss really, really mimic how trauma and stress manifest in our bodies. Chronic fatigue, depression, anxiety, addiction, relationship difficulties, even a sense of emotional numbness and detachment. Those can all be indicators of soul loss. So are we just giving it a different label, or are we just giving it another? So if you really are, one thing to consider, you're saying, oh, wow, all of that fits for me. In your you want to do a soul retrieval, you want to go in that direction, or you may go and I want to work through this with crystals, I want to do through this with work. There's no right or wrong way to do this. The whole point of all of this is on an inner level, that soul loss is going to leave a feeling of being fragmented, incomplete, disconnected from having a sense of purpose or a passion, or not being able to access your inner guidance. And this can be a car accident, the sudden loss of a loved one, the slow erosion of our essence when we're in a toxic living relationship or job. That can all lead to this soul loss or fragmentation.
Oh, wow. What are some ways that people can start to recognize and work with that?
Well, I think that, identifying, and this comes, see how this correlates with the ancestral healing, is if you were going to fill in, I haven't felt right since, and then fill in the blank. Go with whatever automatically comes to mind. If you can identify when that happened, that's a great starting point to go back and to get help, to get it back, to bring it back. So that's the difference between, if you can't find, I don't know why. So your embarrassment in the store, there's no reason in this lifetime. That would be, okay, this is more of a direction of ancestral healing. There's nothing happened. We were never homeless. We never went without. We didn't suffer, all the things that would come with poverty or stress around financial abundance. So if you, just that simple line, I haven't felt right since. And if you're, oh my gosh, I've never felt right since that incident happened and I didn't get the scholarship, or I was in that bad accident, or I, broke up with so-and-so. Another way is if you're not finding any joy or passion for your natural gifts or talents. So if you used to love doing a certain thing and you felt fulfilled and inspired, and now you feel kind of cut off and unable to reconnect with that part of yourself, that's a good place to start as well. What happened around that time frame that I stopped doing what I love?
That's
And
so true.
and you brought up a good point about, I think it was in the last show when we were talking about the pineal gland, that sense of numbness that came after COVID.
Mm-hmm.
So some of these things, it doesn't seem like sometimes we say the same symptoms over and over for different things, but they
Mm-hmm.
all come back to that. The one commonality for humanity is emotion. And that's what we're talking about as empathic people. We have to feel more connected to our emotions.
But also that those symptoms all come back to one word, which is disconnect.
Yes.
That sense
Yes.
of disconnection from who you are, who you were, who you're here to be.
Right. I mean, you can find these missing pieces and get them back through, working with a shamanic practitioner, and they'll bring you on a journey. You can do cleansing ceremonies. You can do intense interactive experience in nature. You may bring these pieces back through art or meditation or working with an altar or dream work or energy healing or journeying. What I'm thinking of, a friend of mine, she's in spirit now, and she did this whole art show she was getting an MFA in art, and she did this oh my goodness, it was intense, of all the abuse she had suffered in her life. And there were paintings and there were installations and there were very interactive pieces. But on the other side of it, and I had spoken to her before she passed, and she said, I'm ready to do more art. And I said, I hope it's going to be lighter this time. And she laughed. And she says, yeah, that helped me to heal. It helped me to bring those soul pieces back. So it doesn't mean that you have to, the whole point of this is it's becoming conscious of finding that lost part of yourself to bring back into your essence so that you can feel more complete and more like yourself again.
Wow. Well, all right. Describe to people what a shamanic journey would look like for this soul retrieval.
So a lot of people, in personal opinion, and I've done a lot of classes and workshops and training and self-development in this, so I am not ever, ever, ever saying I'm a shamanic person. I do some practices. And I think that word is thrown around a lot, so I'm always cautious. I follow core shamanism, which is about the connection that we all have to that internal part. Okay, we've said this many, many times in many, many shows. But you can do this for yourself. You can go to a practitioner, but it's going into an altered state of non-ordinary reality with the intention of finding those missing parts. So recently I did I've shared, I've been doing these daily meditations since the first of the year. And I asked something about, my intention was, how do I release whatever's holding me back so that I can fully step into these life lessons that are presenting? And it brought me to this door, and I opened the door, and I was immediately, there was like this little tiny version of me behind that door. And I went over and I was able to see, like, I had no conscious recollection of being that 3-year-old person, but that it's locked in our memory. It's in there. It's in our subconscious. And through this journey work, you can go and find those pieces and you bring them back and you make peace with it. It's incredible, absolutely incredible work.
Does it always involve repetitive sound, or is that not necessary? Like, do you need to have the drumming or another ongoing sound when you're doing a journey?
What I've found is that as with anything, the more you do it, the easier it gets. And yes, getting into that theta induced or alpha induced, but the repetitive drumming, binaural beat, rattling, anything that will put you into that. But I've noticed recently, since I've been doing this every day, that I was walking down by the river the other day and I stopped, and it was a beautiful day. And all of a sudden I felt like I was able to access that other world without going through all the steps to get there. Like it's very close.
Wow. How long of a practice did it take before you got there? I'm just curious.
As far as being able to tap in and out and not need the whole. So
yeah.
Okay, you know what it reminds me of is when you and I have recently been teaching mediumship, and you always articulate this so beautifully, is be patient with yourself with how long it takes you to get into the zone, into that meditative state. And when you're first starting, it might take you 30 minutes or 45 to really lift your vibration and welcome in spirit. It's the same thing. What used to take, I have to do this for an hour, and now you can get the same results in 15 or 20 minutes because you're able to get into it much quicker.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. But it can also equally, so we're talking about bringing back the healing. You can also use this work to bring back joy, to help you reconnect with that happy energy, that joy, that hope that you used to feel, which I also think is a form of ancestral healing.
Yeah, I do too. It's so important to not only bring that joy back for ourselves, but to remember that it's going to echo into the past and into the future.
Right. And we can't change what people in our lives have done or how they see us, but we can always, always, always change how we view ourselves and how we respond. And I think that's important.
Yes, I do too, because we are only victims if we allow ourselves to be held to that role. But when we feel free to break free from the limitations we've inherited or that have been self-imposed, we can own the responsibility to take action for our own healing. So what do you want to change or heal in your life? Do you know if it started with a specific event or has just become a recurring pattern in your life over time? Are there other people, alive or in spirit, who are part of why this started in your life? If you can't pinpoint a reason here and now in this lifetime, there's a really good chance that there's an ancestor who can help you figure this out.
And it really comes down to you asking yourself, is this mine to own? If you can remember why and when, start there. If you feel like it happened before you even got onto the planet, it can still be healed through releasing the old pattern and replacing it with a new one that empowers you. And I joked about using the fly fishing analogy with someone, catch and release. So if you've ever been fly fishing, you don't usually keep the fish, you catch it and you release it. And I thought about how really that is what we're trying to do here when we get bombarded with these old emotions and loop tapes of negative thoughts. we catch it, we give voice to it, we write it down, we release it, that reclaims our power, our love, our sense of self. We don't want to keep the fish.
That is a great metaphor. I love that. It's almost like when you're doing this journeying, you are fishing for the old emotions that you've detached from. But you always have to face them, give them the attention they're crying out for, and then you can let them go. That's great. Okay, so let's talk about some history behind this. There are accounts in 13th century Norse communities of doing rituals involving a seeress or oracle who served the community as the voice for the ancestors. This spokona or seeing woman would enter into what sounds very similar to a trance state. She would sit on an elevated chair before a group and then bring through messages from the ancestors based on questions asked by those in the audience. This has even been revived by some practitioners of Northern European earth-centered groups such as heathenry, Ancestral, and Norse paganism. The name Oracle Seta or High Seat Seta is also referred to as spey working. During this ritual, the medium has been known to respond in first person and third person as a conduit for ancestors in spirit. This trance state can last several hours with large numbers of people present. Kind of sounds like platform mediumship, doesn't it?
It really does.
Many see this as the seer is traveling in spirit form while he or she is in light trance to the realm of the ancestors, and from there working for the larger group. I would love to see something like that today. That's really cool.
And I think that there is a resurgence in people wanting to learn more about trance, light trance, full trance. It seems like that we've talked about this a lot, that mediumship is shifting and changing and becoming more multidimensional. And for me, it ties back to the shamanic practices because I think it's going to the same place. For other people, they may look at it differently. But if you're working with ancestors you already have a relationship with, or you know the person you're working with. So the difference when we've done readings for people and, oh, my brother passed, and you get the brother, and then a year later they come back and you reconnect with that brother, there can be a familiarity to the energy, even if you don't remember the reading specifically.
Mm.
And when you know that, you don't have to go into an altered state, but you might feel them in just an ordinary. It's similar to, I'm sure, since your parents have died, there's been times where you felt them in your house, you felt them around.
Oh, sure.
You didn't have to go looking for them; they popped in. Hey, we're here.
Yes.
So, so when you're working with an individual or a small group to pray for the health of the living relatives, I think there are a lot of ceremonial rituals from cultures all over the globe. And the connecting thread is that they all go back through the ages to the ancestors who were here before them. And it allows them, we often go to a medium to make that connection. But if you're looking at, did this start 3, 4, 5 generations back, that's work you can do on your own through ancestral healing.
Yeah. Yeah. And the work never stops.
Right.
And I do think it's on some of us to be the ones to initiate this healing. And I would love for you to talk about ways that you're working in your own work to help people do this. Don't you have an event coming up?
I do. Last year, I did a 12-week class on a really deep dive into healing the past through embracing the present. And it was a lot on what we're talking about today. And this group of people met for 12 weeks and we did 6 classes. So every 2 weeks we'd have a class. There would be new information. There were copious handouts. There were exercises. We used Akashic records. We used shamanic journeying. We used meditation. We used group practices just to really go back and find. And there was some amazing things that came through for people. And I think during this time where we're trying to become stronger with our own connection with ourselves, but also with each other, if we can do this work and really put it to rest once and for all, And I have to admit, I made myself do sometimes you'll teach something, but you're not doing it when you should be. I did the work and it changed my mediumship. It changed my meditation. It changed my journaling. It changed me.
Wow.
It's
Wow, that's
it's big.
powerful. It is
Yeah.
big work. It really, I mean, what's bigger than healing centuries of ancestral issues? What's bigger
Right.
than that?
Right. And what's fun is, so if anyone's interested, you can go to my website and there'll be a link with more information on that. And I'll be talking about it some more. It's going to start mid-September and it goes until the end of November. And it is all recorded as we always do. And but it's a very close community that we build in that class. Um, the other cool part that I love about this is that, you know, if you've ever been really connected with a certain mystical, spiritual, religious group or society, or maybe an indigenous culture that isn't in your biological lineage, you can connect with those groups. And I did a meditation recently and connected with Franciscan monks, and I wasn't sure. I was seeing like the brown robes. I was seeing the whole thing. I was like, "What is this?" And I Googled it. And I was like, "Oh, it's them." And I realized it was the energy of that Franciscan monk that came through in the meditation I was doing. So you can find, yes, healing with your personal lineage of ancestors for that healing, that understanding, that forgiveness. But you can also use those same techniques to connect with the mystical groups of societies that can help you with your journey in this lifetime now.
I have a question.
Okay.
How do you know if this pattern or issue that you're trying to heal is connected to ancestral stuff or past lives that you've led? Or does it matter in terms of the healing work?
Okay, and that isn't that such a huge rabbit hole
Yeah.
because then you think about soul groups and soul families, and we come in with certain people for lifetime lessons, and then we come back. Oh, I remember you. You were in my lifetime in Old England, or you were in my lifetime in Spain. So we recognize people, and we come back to do that work with them. So is it all interconnected? I don't know. But can a past life memory and ancestral memory be the same? Remember when we did a show on chakras a while back, and I had shared that I had heard one time Alberto Villaldo talking about an eighth chakra right above our crown that holds all our memories. And he said, from a shamanic perspective, when we're transitioning from this life, all of our memories and experiences are uploaded to this eighth chakra. And when we reincarnate, all these memories and experiences are downloaded into the new body and life we came here to live. And we might not even be cognizant of these memories, but they're there for us to use. And that makes perfect sense to me.
It does. It really, really does. And I think it's a lot of responsibility that's been placed on all of us to really do the work here and now, but knowing that it's sending those ripples throughout all of time, whatever time is. That's why I asked the question about the past lives and the ancestral healing, because I think it's all connected.
Right. I really do. I think it's all connected. And I think that personal opinion, that we might attract people into this lifetime to work on lessons that they may not have been a part of in a past life. But we might come in and say, okay, I suck at trust. I'm going to have play that one over again. Let's do a replay. It doesn't necessarily mean the people or the situations we connect with are replicating what happened in that other life. They're bringing us another way to deal with it so that we have to look at it. So I do think that they all blend together.
Yeah, I do too. So there is a crystal for ancestral healing.
Of course there is.
It's basically banded iron hematite, but lately it's been called ancestralite. And it's a banded iron rock that has silver hematite and dark red jasper. It's kind of a rare stone, but you can find it. It's predominantly mined in South Africa, but it's also found in Brazil. And it's a fantastic stone for doing shadow work, inner child healing, but also working on this ancestral healing. So if there's other great stones you can turn to. Boji stone is a good one. Lodestone, of course, amethyst is the all healer, so you can always look to that. Black kyanite is a great crystal for breaking ties that bind us. But ancestralite is a really neat one to start researching.
Oh, and that's interesting that they changed the name of it.
Well, that's another show. A lot of people, it really is. I won't even go down that. But yeah, it's kind of a promotional thing that I don't really like in the world of crystals.
No, and well, it almost seems disrespectful to our little stone friends.
Doesn't it? I know. So they trademark the names. I'm like, how do you trademark something from Earth?
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, but
Like a
again,
company did?
yeah. Not
Oh,
necessarily that one, but a lot of them. Yeah.
no. Oh,
Yeah,
that's
I think
just kind of sad,
Azeztulite.
isn't it?
Yeah,
It's a,
I think Azeztulite was the first one, and it's mined. It's abundant in North Carolina, and someone bought up the mine, and ta-da! It's expensive.
yeah.
Yeah.
That was a rabbit hole I fell down a couple days ago. I was looking at there's a Mount Micah is here in Western Maine, and you can go on these digs, and you can go on a Sunday, and they'll give you a bucket and a shovel, and you can go dig around, find tourmaline and smoky quartz and all kinds of stuff. And I was thinking, I should really do that. I should go back over there. So then I fell into where are like looking at a map of just here in the States of different places. North Carolina is loaded with
Yes.
gems.
Yes.
And so I was thinking about the connection. We've talked about this in another show, the connection with where we live and the natural minerals and gems that are there. Do we have a more of an affinity, or is that one of the reasons we're drawn to live in certain places is because of that underlying energy?
It could be. It definitely could be. I mean, I remember when I was going to summer camp in the mountains of North Carolina as a kid, and they took us to the side of a rock, and they gave us all pickaxes, and we just picked garnet out of the side of the mountain. I thought it was the coolest thing ever.
They planted a seed, didn't they?
They did. That is for sure. Well, we have so much more to talk about. I want to hear about all of your research into the Ami soul and the souled soul, all the different traditions of healing and retrieving soul work. So should we continue this?
I think we should. I think we have enough to keep going because it's such an important topic right now, but it's also I think it's interesting as all out.
I do too. And I think it's really, really crucial work that we have to do. And it can help us really get in touch with that one question you asked early on. I haven't felt myself since. I think
Yeah.
everyone needs to ask themselves that question
And it's
to
that
help us
easy,
get.
isn't it?
It is that easy. It really is. And then
And
it's
it also takes the blame away.
mhm.
And I think that's really important in all of this that we're talking about.
Yeah, I do too. So if you want to find out more about Denise's amazing immersive class, go to thegratefulmessenger.com and you'll find the information there. And stay tuned because next week we will conclude our talk on how you can embark on starting your own ancestral healing journey. Thank you guys so much for listening. Remember to show up, do great work, and share your light.
Take care.